In this session, we are going to review the notes that we took in class on the United States Constitution. The U.S. Constitution was mainly created to define the structure and power of the national government. I said in class that sometimes you'll hear me use national and federal interchangeably. So I may say federal government or I may say national government. You may hear others refer to it as central government. But if you notice over in the left-hand picture, the representation of the United States Constitution, Article 1 is the legislative, Article 2 is the executive, and Article 3 is the judicial. The Constitution is known as the supreme law of the land. And what that means is no matter what happens in the whole United States, it has to follow the Constitution. Any laws that Congress makes has to follow the Constitution. Any laws that state legislative branch makes have to follow the Constitution. And if a law gets made that does not follow the Constitution, that law has the potential to be declared unconstitutional. The Constitution was set up to divide power between the national and state governments. If you remember when we studied the Articles of Confederation, the Articles of Confederation was set up to give the states the most power. And when they sat down to revise the Articles of Confederation, they realized that that kind of government is not going to work. But they wanted to be sure that there was a national government that did not have too much power and that state governments had power at the same time. So federalism means that they both have power. But what's not listed here is the national government is supreme. So there are times when the national government tells the state governments what to do. And when they do this, it kind of makes the state governments angry, but what makes it even worse is sometimes they're required to do something and the national government does not help them fund it. But this is kind of what it looks like. The Constitution divided power between the two sets of governments. This is the way the power looks. At the top, you have the national government. It is the highest government in the United States. It is considered supreme. You have the state in the middle. The state actually gets its power from the national government, and it can do less things than the national government, although it does have power in each of the states. And then at the bottom, you have the local government, which is the lowest government. It does have the least amount of power. State powers are somewhat designated in the Constitution. The Constitution actually lists certain powers that the national government has. And in the 10th Amendment in the Bill of Rights, it basically delegates any powers that are not given to the national government in the Constitution. They're reserved for the states. And they're called reserved powers because they are being set aside for the states. Just like I gave the example, if you want to go to your favorite restaurant on a Friday night, you make a reservation. So the reservations were made when the Constitution was written for the states to have power. Most of the time, states do have control over public health, public safety, and the welfare of the state. So again, that's kind of what it looks like. The national government delegates some of its power to the states. Sometimes the Constitution does make sure that we have a limited government. And there are certain powers in the Constitution that are denied, specifically to the national government, but therefore to the state government as well. So this is kind of what it would look like. There's your Constitution, and if you notice, it has lots of things written in it. So obviously, that's where the national government would go to find its power. So sometimes what happens is it looks like this. The national government would say something to the effect of, can we really please have some power? And maybe the state government would ask for just a little bit, but the Constitution would actually say no. Because the Founding Fathers wanted to ensure that government does not become all powerful.